When an avoidant falls for you, they don't feel romance first, they feel risk, and that single truth changes how you interpret everything. Most people think falling in love looks like warmth, pursuit, and clear words. But with avoidance, falling is often silent and complicated because love threatens the one thing their nervous system protects the most: control. So instead of moving toward you with clean affection, they often move toward you and away from you at the same time. And if you don't understand this, you'll either chase them into a panic, or you'll assume they don't care, even when the truth is they care more than they can handle. Risk is the first emotion because intimacy is exposure. Intimacy means being seen. It means being accountable. It means your choices affect someone. And many avoidants learned early that closeness comes with a cost. The cost might have been criticism, emotional chaos, judgment, or losing autonomy. So when love starts growing, their body doesn't say, finally. Their body says, danger. Not danger like you are unsafe, danger like closeness could trap them, overwhelm them, or reveal their weaknesses. This is why their behavior becomes confusing precisely when you're getting closer. When things are casual, they can be charming. When things are light, they can be present. But when the connection deepens, the fear wakes up. They start delaying responses. They start needing more space. They start acting independent. They start getting vague. And you, being a normal, loving person, interpret that as disinterest or rejection. But often it's the opposite. It's their system trying to regulate the intensity of attachment. This is also why avoidants often leak feelings instead of declaring them. Declaring is direct. Declaring is vulnerable. Declaring is a risk of rejection. Declaring is also a commitment in their mind. So rather than saying, I'm falling for you, they show signs that they are attached, but they keep plausible deniability. They might watch you closely. They might remember details. They might come back after pulling away. They might get protective or jealous. They might start including you in their world in small ways. But if you confront them directly too early, so what are we? They can panic, not because they don't want you, but because naming it makes it real. That's why this keynote is so powerful for viewers, because it teaches them to read behavior through the lens of nervous system fear, not through the lens of their own anxious hope. It tells them, stop measuring an avoidant's feelings by how smooth they act. Avoidants can act smoother when they feel less and act more confusing when they feel more. The confusion is often the signal that the bond is becoming real. Now, understanding this doesn't mean tolerating bad treatment. It means you stop taking the avoidant's defenses personally. Their distance is often not a statement about your worth. It's a statement about their capacity. Their silence is often not cruelty. It's self-protection. Their vagueness is often not because they want to play games. It's because clarity feels like a cliff. Clarity forces decisions. Decisions force vulnerability. Vulnerability triggers fear. So they hover on the edge. This is why the best way to be irresistible to an avoidant is not to chase their feelings. It's to create safety without pressure and boundaries without punishment. Safety without pressure means you stay calm. You don't interrogate. You don't send paragraphs. You don't try to force closeness in one conversation. You let connection build slowly through consistency. Boundaries without punishment means you don't accept crumbs, but you also don't become dramatic. You simply state what you need and you follow through quietly. That combination reduces their fear of engulfment while increasing respect for you. And respect is the bridge that lets an avoidant approach without feeling trapped. Because here's the key. An avoidant falls for the person who feels like peace, not pressure. Peace means your mood doesn't collapse when they need space. Peace means you don't beg. Peace means you have your own life. Peace means you can walk away if the relationship stays unclear. And that last part is the real risk for them. The moment they sense you won't stay forever in the gray zone, their feelings become sharper. They realize you are not guaranteed. And that realization is what turns quiet attachment into real pursuit. So the first keynote keeps viewers hooked because it reverses the story. The avoidant isn't cold because they feel nothing. They are cold because feeling something scares them. The avoidant doesn't pull away because you're not enough. They pull away because the bond is becoming real. And when you understand that, you stop begging for proof, and you start watching for the only proof that matters, whether they can handle closeness with consistency over time. Because yes, an avoidant can be falling for you and still be inconsistent. That's not romantic, it's reality. The question is not whether they feel. The question is whether they are willing to grow. And the moment you stop chasing their feelings and start requiring healthy behavior, you become the one thing their nervous system can't dismiss, a connection that feels rare in a person who cannot be controlled by fear. The confusing pattern that reveals attachment is the pull away and return cycle, and it's one of the clearest signs an avoidant is emotionally hooked even when they refuse to admit it. If you meant nothing, they would leave cleanly. They would fade and stay faded. They would detach and replace you without looking back. But when an avoidant keeps coming back in a repetitive, strange way, it usually means their nervous system is attached, even while their mind is trying to stay in control. Here's why that cycle happens. Avoidants experience closeness and intensity as a threat to autonomy. When the bond starts feeling real, their body gets activated. They start feeling responsible. They start feeling seen. They start feeling the pressure of intimacy, even if you're not pressuring them. So they pull away to regulate. Pulling away lowers their anxiety. It gives them space. It gives them control. It gives them relief. In that moment, they can convince themselves they're fine. They can tell themselves, I needed space. I'm better off. This is too much. And because they feel calmer, they believe the story. But then something else happens. Once they're at a distance, they start feeling the other side of attachment, the loss, the quiet, the absence, the missing comfort, the realization that you're not there, and that absence activates the part of them that they try to suppress, the need for connection. That's when they return, not always with a clean confession, but with contact text. A check-in, a small reach. What's the return to calm the ache, to restore the bond, to regain certainty. So the cycle is not random. It's a nervous system swinging between fear of closeness and fear of loss. This is why their returns often feel confusing. They can return warmly, even intensely, and then pull away again shortly after. You might get a great weekend and then silence. You might get an emotional message and then distance. You might get affection and then a cold tone. And if you don't understand the psychology, you assume they're playing games or they're lying. Sometimes they are immature, yes, but often they are sincerely conflicted. They want you, but they fear what wanting you means. They crave connection, but they don't know how to stay present when connection becomes real. For your audience, this keynote is powerful because it explains why they feel addicted. The avoidance cycle creates intermittent reinforcement. That's the same pattern that makes slot machines addictive. Sometimes you get closeness, sometimes you get nothing. Sometimes you get warmth, sometimes you get cold. The unpredictability keeps your nervous system hooked. Your brain starts chasing the high of the return. You start thinking, if I just say the right thing, they'll stay. You start overanalyzing, you start waiting, you start living for crumbs. And the avoidant doesn't even have to do much, because the pattern itself becomes the hook. But here's the important part. The cycle reveals attachment, but it doesn't guarantee readiness. An avoidant returning is not the same as an avoidant changing. Returning can be driven by loneliness, guilt, or fear of loss, not by the capacity to build a stable relationship. That's why you can't measure love by the return itself. You have to measure love by what happens after the return. A healthy return looks steady. It looks like clear communication. It looks like effort that continues after the relief. It looks like them staying present when things get emotionally close. It looks like accountability. It looks like respect for your boundaries. It looks like consistency through the week, not just a romantic moment followed by vanishing. A return driven by attachment but not growth looks different. It comes in spikes. It's intense, then silent. Warm, then cold. Here, then gone. It's the same pattern in a new outfit. Now, why is the pull away and return cycle such a strong sign of falling? Because it means you've become a trigger, in the deepest sense. You trigger their fear and their desire. You trigger their longing and their defense. You are not neutral to them anymore. A person you don't care about doesn't create anxiety. A person you don't care about doesn't create reattachment. The fact that they can't stay away is information. The fact that they can't stay close is also information. And this is where your audience needs the shift. The goal is not to interpret the cycle as romance. The goal is to interpret it as a sign you must bring structure. Structure means boundaries and pacing. It means you stop rewarding the pull away. It means you don't chase when they distance. It means you don't give full access the moment they return. It means you require consistency before intimacy deepens again. Because if you keep giving maximum access after minimum effort, you train the cycle to continue. So yes, the pull away and return pattern can reveal an avoidant is falling for you, because attachment is present. But it also reveals the exact place you must protect yourself, because attachment without stability is not love you can build on. The real power is not in making them return. The power is in making the return require growth. And that only happens when you stop chasing the return and start choosing yourself. It's slipping out. Signs are the moments their feelings leak through the mask, because avoidants can hide a lot with words, but they can't fully hide what their nervous system starts doing when they're falling. When an avoidant is truly attached, three things tend to show up even if they refuse to label it: protective jealousy. They deny attention that locks onto small details, and body language that gets softer even when their mouth stays guarded. These signs matter because they reveal the truth without requiring a confession, and they keep your audience hooked because everyone has felt that confusing contradiction. They act like they don't care, but something about them says they do. Let's start with protective jealousy, the jealousy they pretend they don't have. Avoidants hate jealousy because jealousy exposes need. Jealousy implies attachment. Jealousy implies fear of loss. And fear of loss is a feeling they don't like admitting even to themselves. So instead of saying, "I'm jealous," they disguise it. They ask casual questions like, "Who were you with?" in a tone that sounds neutral. They make small comments that test your availability. "Looks like you're having fun without me." They suddenly become more responsive when you post something that suggests attention from others. They watch your stories quickly. They show up when they sense competition. They might not claim you, but they don't want to lose you. This is the avoidant version of jealousy. It's protective, subtle, and often delivered with plausible deniability. The key here is not to romanticize it, but to read it as evidence that you become important. When you don't matter, there is no jealousy. When you don't matter, there is no urgency. When you don't matter, they don't care who else has your attention. So if their energy shifts when they sense you pulling away or being desired elsewhere, that's a leak. Their nervous system is telling on them, and the reason it's so compelling to viewers is because it creates the feeling of power. They do care, but again, caring is not the same as being ready. Jealousy is a feeling. Love is a pattern. Now, the second leak is remembering small details. Avoidants are often selective with their emotional attention. When they're not invested, they can feel detached and distracted. But when they are falling, their attention becomes sharp. They remember your schedule. They remember your preferences. They remember things you said in passing. They remember your triggers. They remember your goals. They remember the little story you told weeks ago. This may seem simple, but it's intimacy. It's the brain building a map of you. It's the brain placing you in their mental world as someone significant. It's an unconscious sign of bonding. Because you don't remember details about someone you don't care about. You remember details about someone who matters. And this is where avoidants surprise people. They may not offer emotional words, but they show emotional tracking. They might not say, "I miss you," but they ask, "How did that thing go today?" They might not say, "I'm falling," but they remember what makes you anxious and they avoid triggering it. Or they try to. They might not say, "I care," but they remember your favorite snack and bring it. These are leaks because their actions start doing the admitting for them. The third leak is body language that softens. Even when avoidants keep their words controlled, the body often reveals the bond. They linger after a hug. They hold eye contact longer. Their voice gets gentler around you. They sit closer. They mirror you. They touch you in small, unconscious ways. They stay present longer than they need to. They look at you differently when you laugh. They look slightly unsettled when you pull away. The body is honest because the body is responding to attachment. They can say, "I'm fine," but their posture says, "I don't want you to leave." They can say, "I don't do relationships," but their gaze says, "You're becoming mine in my head." Now, here's the deeper reason these leaks matter. Avoidants are often battling two forces. One force is desire, attachment, longing. The other force is fear, vulnerability, loss of control. So they control the words because words can create commitment. Words can create expectation. Words can make it real. But their nervous system is still bonding. So the bond leaks out around the edges: jealousy, attention, body language. That leak is the truth trying to express itself without triggering the fear of direct confession. But your audience needs the warning inside the fascination. These leaks are not permission to chase. People see a leak and think, "Okay, now I can push for clarity." They push, the avoidant panics, and the cycle begins. The right response to a leak is not pressure, it's structure. Structure means you stay calm, you don't interrogate. You don't rush labels. You observe. You keep your standards. You require consistency. You let them prove their feelings through behavior, not through a one-time emotional moment. Because yes, these signs can mean an avoidant is falling for you. But the real question is not, do they feel it? The real question is, can they hold it? Can they stay present when it deepens? Can they communicate when it gets close? Can they be consistent when the fear rises? Leaks are a hint. Consistency is the proof. And teaching viewers that difference is what keeps them watching to the end. Because it gives them both the clarity they crave and the self-respect they need. The intimacy milestone is when an avoidant starts giving you access to their routine, their everyday world. Because routine is where real attachment lives and where avoidants protect themselves the most. Anyone can be charming in a highlight moment. Anyone can text late at night. Anyone can show up when it's convenient. But routine is different. Routine is consistency. Routine is predictability. Routine is letting someone become part of your daily life without feeling trapped. And for an avoidant, that is a massive step, because their routine is their control system. It's how they keep their emotions regulated. It's how they stay independent. It's the structure that makes them feel safe. So when an avoidant starts including you in that structure, it's not random. It's not just hanging out. It's their nervous system allowing closeness in the safest way it knows how through ordinary consistency. That's why this sign is so powerful. It's quiet, but it's real. It shows up in small, repeated behaviors that look normal to a secure person but feel huge to an avoidant. What does access to routine look like? It looks like they start planning instead of only reacting. They don't just message when they're bored. They ask, "Are you free on Thursday?" They don't keep everything spontaneous. They start creating patterns. "I'll call you after work." And then they actually do it. They start letting you see them in their real life, not just in the version they present when they're trying to impress you. They might invite you into their errands, their gym schedule, their lunch break, their weekend rhythm. They might start introducing you to their friends or mentioning you around family. They might start making you part of their timing. "I'm heading home. I'm finishing this meeting. I'll be busy until 6 but free after." That's routine language. That's inclusion. And the reason this is so intimate is because avoidants often keep relationships compartmentalized. They'll keep you in one box: fun, romantic, weekends, late night, and they keep the rest of their life protected. Compartmentalizing lets them feel connected without feeling consumed. But when they start merging you into the everyday, they are loosening that protection. They are letting you occupy real space in their life. That's not just attraction. That's attachment. This is also why avoidants can be hot and cold early on, because they can handle intensity in short bursts but struggle with sustained closeness. Routine creates sustained closeness. It means you can't just disappear without it being noticed. It means you're building a predictable pattern that implies dependence, and dependence is what avoidants fear. So when they choose routine with you, it means their fear is being challenged by their feelings. They may still act guarded in words, but their behavior is saying, "I'm letting you closer." Now, here's the important nuance. A avoidant can include you in routine and still be inconsistent if they haven't done inner work. They might start a pattern and then break it when they feel overwhelmed. They might invite you in and then suddenly need space. That doesn't mean the sign was fake. It means intimacy triggered fear. That's why routine is not only a milestone, it's also a pressure point. Routine tests whether they can handle steady closeness without running. So what should your audience do when they see this sign? The biggest mistake is to treat routine access as permission to relax completely and ignore patterns. People see progress and they rush. They start demanding labels. They push for commitment. They increase emotional intensity. And that can backfire because it can turn a safe, gradual closeness into pressure. Avoidants can tolerate closeness when it grows naturally, but they panic when closeness becomes a demand. The most powerful approach is to match the pace with calm standards. If they're giving you routine access, receive it warmly, but don't overinvest faster than their consistency. Let them build a track record. Let routine become reliable. Let their actions stack up over time. Don't punish them for being avoidant, but don't rescue them from the consequences of inconsistency either. If they break the routine, don't chase. Don't interrogate. Simply return to your standards. "I enjoy you, but I need consistency." Then watch what they do. Because an avoidant who is truly falling and growing will stabilize. They will correct themselves. They will come back with accountability. They will try to keep the pattern. They will choose steadiness over fear more often. An avoidant who is only enjoying the comfort of you without doing the work will drift back into hot and cold. They will keep you in a compartment. They will avoid building anything that requires sustained presence. So routine is the sign that their walls are lowering in the most real-life way. It's not fireworks. It's structure. It's ordinary consistency. And that's why it keeps viewers engaged, because it shifts the focus from fantasy to reality. Anyone can say, "I like you," but when an avoidant starts giving you access to their routine, their life is admitting what their mouth won't say. "You matter enough to become part of my everyday." The dangerous part viewers misread is the testing and the return, because it looks like love when you're hungry for love, but it's often just relief, seeking when they're hungry for comfort. Avoidance can absolutely have real feelings for you and still return in a way that is not about building a healthy relationship. They can miss you, crave you, feel jealous, and still be unwilling to do the work of consistency. That's why this keynote matters. It protects your audience from getting addicted to crumbs and calling it romance. Testing is what avoidants do when they want certainty without vulnerability. They want to know you're still there. but they don't want to risk being rejected. They want to know they matter, but they don't want to admit they need you. They want to feel safe, but they don't want to feel exposed. So instead of coming forward clearly, they run a test. They go quiet and see if you chase. They delay replies and see if you panic. They become vague and see if you try harder. They disappear and then return like nothing happened to see if you'll accept it. These tests are rarely spoken. They're behavioral. And because your nervous system wants connection, you often respond in the way that fails the test for you. You chase, you over-explain, you rush to restore the bond. The painful truth is that tests train the relationship dynamic. If you chase every time they pull away, you teach them withdrawal works. If you reward vague contact with full emotional access, you teach them vagueness is enough. If you accept disappearing without accountability, you teach them they can reset the relationship whenever they want. And avoidants learn quickly from outcomes. They might not articulate it, but they learn, I can stay avoidant and still keep love. That's why the pattern repeats. Now let's talk about the return, because the return is the drug. The return feels like hope. It feels like validation. It feels like, they chose me. But avoidant returns are often not driven by devotion first. They're driven by discomfort. They return when their loneliness peaks. They return when they sense you pulling away. They return when their fear of losing control rises. They return when they feel jealous. They return when they need a hit of connection to calm their nervous system. That's why the return can be sudden and intense. A warm message, a late-night call, a sweet apology, a burst of affection. And if you've been starving for warmth, you take it like water in the desert. But here is the key distinction your audience needs. Relief is not repair. Relief is the calm they get when you respond. Repair is the change they show after you respond. Relief is what they feel when the uncertainty ends. Repair is what they do to stop creating uncertainty in the first place. Many avoidants return to get relief. They want to know you're still available. They want to calm their anxiety. They want to restore the safety net. And once they get that, once they feel your warmth again, their urgency fades. The fear of loss calms down. The nervous system relaxes, and then the old fear of intimacy returns. They start feeling pressured again. They start feeling responsible again. They start feeling exposed again. And then they pull away again. That's the cycle that breaks people, because it turns your heart into a yo-yo. So how do you know if the return is real devotion or relief-seeking? You don't know by the emotion of the moment. You know by what happens next. Real devotion creates steady behavior. Relief-seeking creates spikes. Real devotion shows up as consistency after the reunion. Relief-seeking shows up as warmth today and silence tomorrow. Real devotion includes accountability. I know I went distant. I want to do better. I'm willing to rebuild. Relief-seeking avoids the hard conversation, acts like nothing happened, or blames you for being cautious. Real devotion respects your boundaries. Relief-seeking tries to bypass them. Another sign is how they respond to your pacing. If you say, I'm open to talking, but I need consistency, a person who is devoted will not get offended. They will understand your need is reasonable. They will show up patiently. They will accept that trust must be rebuilt. A person who is relief-seeking will push. They will pressure you to forgive quickly. They will guilt you for being guarded. They will say you're overreacting. They will become irritated when they don't get instant access. That irritation tells you everything. It says, I came back for comfort, not commitment. Now the most powerful thing you can teach your audience is how to pass these tests without becoming cold. Passing the avoidant test doesn't mean playing games. It means staying steady. It means not chasing. It means not rewarding crumbs. It means keeping your life moving. It means responding proportionally. It means giving warmth, but not giving full access without consistency. It means letting their actions earn closeness. Because if you keep failing the test by chasing, you train them to stay avoidant. But if you hold your standard calmly, you create a new reality. They either rise to meet you or they fade away, and either outcome protects you. So the return is not the goal. The goal is a stable love. And stable love is never built on tests, crumbs, and relief. It's built on clarity, accountability, and consistency over time. That's how you keep your audience engaged and empowered, because you're not just describing avoidant behavior. You're teaching them how to stop being controlled by it. The final truth is the one that sets people free. Don't measure love by how often they return. Measure it by how consistently they show up when they have you, especially whether they repair after they mess up, because almost anyone can return when they feel lonely, guilty, jealous, or afraid of losing you. Returning is easy. Returning can be emotional. Returning can even look romantic. But staying steady is the real proof of love, and repair is the real proof of maturity. This keynote matters because your audience has been trained by the avoidant cycle to see returns as hope. They've been conditioned to believe, if they came back, It means they care. And yes, sometimes it does. But caring is not the same as being able to love you well. A person can care and still be unsafe. A person can miss you and still repeat the pattern. A person can feel attached and still avoid responsibility. So if your viewers want a relationship that doesn't drain their nervous system, they must learn to judge the relationship by the boring evidence, not the dramatic moments. Consistency means they don't only show up when the relationship is light. They show up when it's inconvenient. They show up when they're stressed. They show up when there's conflict. They show up when you have needs. They show up when closeness rises and fear rises too. They don't punish you with silence. They don't disappear for days. They don't keep you guessing. They don't make you work for basic communication. Consistency is not perfection, it's stability. It's the feeling that you don't have to chase love. You don't have to beg to be treated well. You don't have to decode them every day. And the reason, when they have you, is such a powerful phrase is because avoidants can look amazing when they feel they might lose you. They can become attentive, affectionate, even intense when the fear of loss is high. But once they feel safe again, once they feel they have access again, the fear of loss drops, and that's when the avoidant pattern tries to return. That's the moment that reveals the truth. Do they stay consistent now that they're not scared? Or do they drift back into distance now that they're comfortable? That's the real test of whether their feelings are strong enough to push them into growth. Now the second half is the deal breaker: repair. Because everyone will mess up. Every relationship has ruptures. The difference between healthy love and traumatic love is not whether problems happen, it's whether problems get repaired. Repair is what makes love safe. Repair looks like direct accountability. Not, "You're too sensitive." Not, "I was busy." Repair is, "I shut down and I know that hurt you." Repair is, "I went distant and you didn't deserve that." Repair is, "I understand why you don't trust me and I want to rebuild." Repair is them naming their behavior without blaming you for it. Repair is them making changes you can actually feel, not promises you can only hope for. Repair also looks like respecting your boundaries after they mess up. This is huge. Many avoidants want forgiveness quickly because quick forgiveness removes their shame. They want you to move on, not because they've changed, but because they don't want to sit in discomfort. They want the slate clean without doing the cleaning, so they might push you to be okay. They might act annoyed if you're cautious. They might say, "Why are you still on this?" That reaction is not love. That reaction is entitlement. A partner who can repair will tolerate the discomfort of rebuilding trust. They won't rush you. They won't punish you for being careful. They will understand that safety is earned. They will show you with behavior over time. They will accept that the price of being inconsistent is that it takes time to feel safe again. Repair requires humility. It requires patience. It requires a willingness to be the one who steadies the relationship instead of destabilizing it. And this is where your audience takes their power back, because they stop being hypnotized by intensity. They stop being controlled by the highs and lows. They stop calling breadcrumbs love. They stop accepting story views, "miss you," texts, and late-night calls as proof. They start watching for the real proof. Does this person show up consistently when they have access, and do they repair when they cause harm? This shift changes everything because it forces the avoidant into a real choice. If you don't reward returns with instant intimacy, if you don't chase, if you don't collapse your boundaries, the avoidant cannot keep living in the gray zone. They can't keep you as an option while avoiding accountability. They must either rise and build a healthy bond, or they must leave. And either outcome is a win for you, because your nervous system stops being dragged through uncertainty. So the final truth is not a romantic promise, it's a standard. Don't chase the feeling of being wanted. Choose the security of being loved well. Don't measure the relationship by the moment they come back. Measure it by the weeks after they come back. Measure it by the consistency when no one is watching. Measure it by how they handle conflict. Measure it by whether they repair instead of disappearing. Because in the end, love isn't proven by how intensely someone returns when they're scared. Love is proven by how steadily they stay when they're safe.